So I was cruising around the net like I normally do, however you cruise a net, generally just sitting in a chair, click of a button, finger dice, typing. But hitting a couple of boards that I like to hit up because they like to see some things. And I came across a news headline that I want to mention. And it even says in the headline, Bombshell. Bombshell. So it's like, hey, I really got to pay this. But I'm going to pull up the Bombshell here. And I want you to see the headline. Here's the headline. Boom. Bombshell. New Zealand pays $1,000 to doctors for euthanizing COVID-19 patients. And that's InfoWars. You can think what you want about them. December 27th, they come out with this. So you'd be like, wow, hold on a second. This is absolutely horrendous. How dare they do this kind of thing? How dare they do this? Now, the first thing you'd look, if you're familiar with various things, InfoWars is definitely on the conservative side, we'll put it that way. But they're not the only ones who are covering this kind of thing. So I typed in the actual headline, and I come up. So like InfoWars is covering it, Natural News is covering it, Free Canada, Live Action, Socio Echo History is covering it. See, you got a lot of these things that are covering it, and you go, wait a minute, hold on. Every single one of those is right-wing, kind of, you can say extremist, whatever you want. You say, hey, that's the way it is. But the question I want to ask, first thing is like, is it true? And what's behind it? So I did what you would normally do in such a thing. When you see such a headline, a bombshell headline as well, I hit the fact checkers up. And I wanted to see, okay, what are the fact checkers saying? Now, it's no secret that most fact checkers, if you're familiar with this, they're on the left side of the political spectrum. So you got the right side and the left side. So I decided to hit the fact checkers and see, is this true? Because this just doesn't sound true. And the first thing I want you to be skeptical of things like this. What foundation do they want? The right wing issues, like the foundation. There's a government conspiracy, all that. The left wing, everything the right wing says is bad. So they both have a biased foundation. So I hit up the fact checkers, the left wing fact checkers, and they really come out. Their final conclusion on it, and the one I looked, was missing context. Now, there is missing context. I agree with that as I studied it. And as I pulled up one of the other ones that actually covers it a little bit better, and it seems funny, but I pulled up the Catholic Herald. They seem to be a little less biased on this than the InfoWars was. But they're talking about the fact that they admit that the euthanasia law came in New Zealand, which it has in multiple countries. I'm in Canada, and yeah, we've got a euthanasia law here too. And so what you have, and what they've done is they've extrapolated in a way they shouldn't have. But New Zealand has said that with their euthanasia laws, it's up to the practitioner, the medical practitioner, and COVID-19 can be considered a terminal illness. So therefore, COVID-19 patients in New Zealand could potentially be euthanized. In other words, subject to euthanasia. And there is the government help covers the cost of it, so plus expenses, that kind of thing. That is fully covered. You can research that kind of thing. So it's not this bombshell of, hey, New Zealand is euthanizing COVID-19 patients for a cost of $1,000. But there is something there. So the first thing I want you to do, and I want to talk about there just briefly as I have, is this idea that, hey, don't believe every headline, don't believe every news story. Check it from both sides. That's often what I say. Don't just stick to government-funded sites. Like you have here in Canada, the number one government-funded site is the CBC. They're definitely government propaganda and that kind of thing. But go to both sides. Don't stick to right-wing extreme. Don't stick to left-wing extremes. The truth's somewhere in the middle. But the second thing I want to talk about is, what message is that sending? That is sending a message of, hey, you know what? You get COVID-19, you've got no hope. Now, mind you, I understand the seriousness of COVID-19. It is serious in quite a few cases. Even in the small province that I live in here, we've had well over 100 deaths from COVID-19 or COVID-19 complications in that kind of aspect. And so it can be something that's very serious. It takes seriously. But that message is, hey, you get COVID-19, you could potentially have no hope. And the other problem I have with this is, Typically, for a terminal illness, the person has to have the wherewithal to say, "Hey, I want this done. I want to undertake this." Now, I am not in favor of euthanasia, and I have a reason for that. And I do believe that no Christian, no disciple of Jesus Christ should ever engage in euthanasia, simply because, as a follower and disciple of Jesus Christ, our life is not ours, it belongs to Him. And the Apostle Paul said it best. He says, "Whether I live or die, I am Christ." And so whether we live or die, we are in His hands. Now, but in that, for those who partake of it, the procedure is supposed to be, hey, at least here in Canada, I'm not sure of Australia, but they have to say, "This is what I want." The prognosis has to be considered terminal. And then there's like a 10-day waiting period, and 2 medical practitioners have to sign off on it. But the message behind it all is the fact that, hey, you are not going to recover. So it's supposed to be reserved for terminal cancers where they're just going to decline and things like that. Unfortunately, many places are also unfortunately extending that to mental illness and mental disease, which again I am absolutely against. But the message it's sending is that you have no hope. So how does a COVID patient who is on ventilators in the ICU, which I hope and I pray that many of us would never experience, and unfortunately it does happen, and they're generally put in induced coma. If you remember the pictures that they used to show us from the left-wing sites, they'd say, "Hey, this is what your fate is if you don't get the vaccine." How are they saying, "Hey, I don't want this. I want to be euthanized"? How are they saying this? The problem is it's sending the message, as I said, there's no hope. And it's leaving it up to in essence, there's a place for abuse, it's leaving it up to the medical practitioner. That's the potential. I'm not saying that's what's happening. But it's this idea that there is no hope. And that's a shame. This is what we don't need. We just come out of Christmas. And one of the things of Christmas is this idea of hope. But unfortunately, if our hope is always put into the medical science, which is always changing, always developing, which is the nature of science, if it's always put into the latest what people are saying as they learn, they're fallible, we will have no hope. So my question is, where is our hope? Our hope cannot be found in this world. If our hope is in ourselves, we fail. That's a bad foundation. If our hope is continuously in our government systems, that is a bad system. It is a bad foundation. It's a leaky foundation. That's going to leave us ultimately with no hope. And this is why having a conversation with people, they're talking about they're afraid. They're frightened. They don't want this. It's almost like you have no hope. And the truth is, we need to have our hope on a firm foundation. And it's no secret what I put towards, that the firm foundation is Jesus Christ, in His Word, in His way. And that is where we have the answers. It doesn't mean that we aren't going to catch COVID-19. It doesn't mean that some of us aren't going to suffer from it. But it does mean that there is a hope, both in this life and in the life to come. There is a hope. And so that's what I wanted to talk to you just briefly about in this little session here, in this brief segment of Foundation, this excerpt here at Standalone, is this, that don't believe everything you read. Don't believe the sensational of a right wing. Don't believe the sensational of a left wing. The truth is in the middle, but at the same time, that there is hope. Whatever you're going through, be it mental illness, be it depression, be it anxiety, being even suffering from a medical condition, be it COVID-19, there is a hope. And I encourage you to reach out. Reach out to me if you want to talk here through the channels, through the comments. I will respond to you. Send me a direct message. I will respond to you if you need that help. And I can help you with this. And I want to encourage you that there is hope. Never give up. Hey, I just want to thank you for watching. If you like the content, want to subscribe, like, tell a friend, get the word out. Also, if you want more content, you can follow me on YouTube, on Rumble, or you can even download the Foundation with Steve Teed podcast and take me on the go, found on almost all podcast apps. This couldn't happen without you, and I encourage you, build on a strong foundation.